I once had a visitor from Mongolia. He said to me that we have a law in our country that you are forbidden to change your geographical neighbors. I said we have the same law. We have never tried to keep the peace. We have always prayed for peace. But in Singapore, we have been in the Garden of Eden beyond Adam and Eve, which once you have left, you cannot come back again.
As a young person, I think there's actually, not just in Singapore, but everywhere, there's a larger generational divide based off of different beliefs in normative issues. So I think what my Amma values is very different from what I value. What perspectives do you think young people are lacking nowadays? And how do you think young people can also try and bridge that conversation?
I think you are much more prepared for the new world than we are, because there's a completely different set of challenges, and you are growing up attuned to them. I mean, you do not know a pre-internet age. And the future is going to be connected in one way or the other, despite bifurcation, despite people nearshoring, reshoring, and trying to disconnect chunks of the world. Even in North Korea, people get news, somehow or other. So I think for the new world, the young will be growing up as digital natives, much more prepared for it than my generation can start to be now. We are trying our best not to be swamped and left behind and to keep up, but to be not just keeping up and ahead, you have to be a young person. What you do need to know is that certain things which your parents believe or your grandparents believe are actually true. And remain true. The world has completely changed, but race, language, and religion remain fundamental driving atavistic forces which are very powerful, that there are big countries and small countries, and Singapore is always going to be a small country, that we have different ways of making a living, but we will always have to make a living, and our neighbors will always be bigger neighbors than us, whom we will do our best to make friends with. I once had a visitor from Mongolia, and he said to me that we have a law in our country that you are forbidden to change your geographical neighbors. I said, we have the same law. They've got Russia and China as their best friends. We have Indonesia and Malaysia as our nearest neighbors and good friends. And it is going to be like this for all time. We are different from them. They are different from us. We can benefit from them and they can benefit from us. But there are also differences in perspectives which are quite deep-seated because we're just strategically in a different situation. And we have to be able to manage them. And I think young people particularly have to understand this. It is not so easy. It's not so easy to do, and it's not so easy to understand. Every country operates in an international environment, including the United States of America. And you need to know what the tensions are, what the interests are, what are transient, and you hope that will blow over with another administration or another foreign leader. What are long-term trends which have to be seriously dealt with and may need change of mindsets which are quite fundamental. The last area, which maybe is capstone, is you need to understand some politics. How do you get into a position where you are able to make things happen in the country? If the political leadership goes wrong, if you have a good civil service, it can keep going okay for quite a long time to come. If you never have had a good political leadership and you have a strong civil service, you can go okay as long as it's straight and level and you don't fly into a crisis. If you're in a crisis and you must switch off the autopilot and take hold of the controls, you have a problem. So actually, our model is that the political leadership has to understand what it is to govern. It's not just for you to make speeches. It's not just for you to be the PR face. It's not just for you to read the script which you have been drafted, write it, decide the content, set the direction, and make it happen. And how to get into such a political situation may or may not be possible in every country, but to understand how politics works and therefore how within that environment public officers can make a contribution, I think is important. Probably the most important of all.
Singapore has always been trying to keep peace and facilitate a dialogue between the two sides across the Taiwan Strait. Do you view the possibility that the PRC using war to reunify with Taiwan will increase in the next Trump presidency, considering he's more flexible in negotiation? If so, how Singapore react trying to keep peace between the two sides from the Taiwan Strait, as she always did in history?
Well, first of all, we have never tried to keep the peace. We have always prayed for peace. It's a big difference. It's beyond our powers. We wish both sides well. We are friends with both sides of the Taiwan Strait, and we hope that they will be able to have a stable, peaceful relationship, and any changes will happen peacefully and in a way which is acceptable to both sides. It has become more complicated over time. I do not know how it will evolve in the next 4 years, but this is a dynamic which has longer than a 4-year horizon, and I don't believe the views which are sometimes expressed to say 2028 or some year like that is crucial, and therefore something is about to happen in the next term of the US government.
So you have described Singapore as a Garden of Eden. I was curious as to what strategic steps do you take during your term of government to ensure that we continue in this state, and for looking ahead, for Singaporeans as well as for people looking to live in or partner Singapore, what are some of the things that you would encourage them to focus on to ensure that Singapore continues to grow?
Well, it depends mainly on us. I say Garden of Eden because it's a state where you are in, which once you have left, you cannot come back again. And I try to explain to you why where we are is highly path dependent and dependent in particular on what happened in the first few years of our nation building journey. And because we have been able to build on that and maintain that, we have stayed in the Garden of Eden for more than one generation. If you go back to Genesis, that's kind of a contradiction in terms. But in Singapore, we have been in the Garden of Eden beyond Adam and Eve. And the way to stay there is to continue to have good government, continue to have good policies, continue to get new generations of capable and committed people into government to lead the population, and to have the population well looked after, at the same time understanding the realities of what our stability and prosperity depends on, and how we need to work together to keep it like this. Of course, you also have to understand that it is quite unusual for it to be like this, and if you break from this and you go to become a normal country, you will have the problems which normal countries have, and you cannot come back to where you are again, ever. And I've tried to do that. I think over 20 years, pursued all kinds of policies. I've brought in every election new teams of members of parliament, new potential ministers, tried them out. Some have stayed on, some have gone on to other illustrious careers, and kept the team up to date to the best of my ability, and been able to hand over country stable, in good order, to a team ready to take over. And now they have to do it and keep on doing it in the same way. But nothing is forever. Nobody can say, here's a formula and it will work for, never mind eternity, but even for the next 50 years. There's no such formula. But if you ask me, between buying insurance in case you fall out of the Garden of Eden and investing in this so that it continues to work well, I say don't spread your bets. Focus, make sure this works. We've done it before, and if you keep on making it working, all the troubles in the world, well, we can sit here. We won't be immune from them, but I think we can keep ourselves safe from them.